Hi, my name is Rich Leiter, and welcome to my YouTube channel called The Naked Booktuber. As you know, or maybe you don't know, I am not originally from this planet called the Earth. I hail from another planet in a different galaxy, different solar system, which is about 1,000 light years from one of the stars in the constellation known as Orion. The name of this planet is called Malinla. Now, when I was on Malinla, I was charged by my immediate superior, Commander O'Brien, with the responsibility of traveling to the Earth and trying to learn as much as I can about human beings, whereupon I would compile my findings in a report and send them back to the commander. Now, I've done this to a certain degree in a report which can be considered a novel, but it's really a report to my home world, which is called Leaving Home. Of course, I couldn't put down all of my observations about this strange planet in this report, Leaving Home, because there were just so many different things to talk about, but I put down some of the main things. Anyway, one of the most striking things that I've learned since being on the Earth is that human beings have a great desire to dominate everything. You know, human beings are called Homo sapiens, which means the wise man. But I don't really think that human beings are wise, especially not when they're compared to my own home world of Malinla. I don't know what the Latin phraseology is, but I would call man not Homo sapiens, but I would call him man the dominator, or man the control freak. I think that would be a lot more apt and closer to the true nature of human beings. Human beings need to dominate themselves, other human beings. They need to dominate with this drive to know everything, even that which they cannot know and which they are incapable of knowing. They seek to dominate nature, and they have been able to dominate some of nature recently using their latest technologies, but that's not enough for them. Human beings seek to dominate everything. And this is actually very tragic, but it's also kind of funny. Human beings seek to dominate that which is currently known as God, or the infinite, or forever, or always. All of these concepts kind of mean the same thing. Death. Human beings understand that they're going to die someday, and this upsets them, and they refuse to accept the fact that they're going to die someday. And so they seek to dominate even death. So when I say death, God, forever, eternity, all these things are roughly the same thing to me. All of these are things which are not human, which are beyond the pale, the ken of human beings. To be a human being is to think in finite terms, to think in terms of a beginning, a middle, and an end. However, a concept like the infinite or forever, well, that has no beginning, it has no middle, and it has no end. The concept of God has no beginning, no middle, and no end. So it's not, we don't have the ability, they, I'll say we, but I don't really include myself. So human beings do not have the ability to understand, to dominate, if you will, that which is beyond their ken, their human understanding. If you're human, you can only understand things in human finite terms. But when it comes to things which are not human, which are extra-human, like death, like God, like forever, like infinity, like eternity, when it is not within our ability, our capacity to understand these things, well, this drives man nuts when he feels that he has a limitation and he cannot dominate that. So he ignores the fact that he cannot dominate that, and he seeks to dominate it anyway. How does man do that? How does man dominate? How does human man dominate or try to dominate that which is extra-human? Well, he does that by assuming that everything is human. Even though God is not human, he seeks to make God human so that he can understand and then therefore dominate God. How does he do this? He does this using human metaphors to make everything understandable. For instance, he will say that, I hear this very frequently, I'm sure you all have also. Since I've been on this planet, I've heard many, many times, ad nauseum, the phrase, God is love. Never quite understood that. Love is a human concept. But God is not human. So how can you assign a human concept to that which is not human? A lot of the time, human beings, in their attempt to dominate everything, will say about death, well, when you die, you're just going home. I've heard that a lot too, and I'm sure you all have as well. When you die, you go home. Another human metaphor, because what is the word home? Home is a human concept. So we try to make death less frightening by calling it not the unknown, not the unknowable, but we call it home, something which we can all relate to. So we do things like that. We talk about God being merciful. Well, mercy is a human concept. We talk about God being a jealous God. Well, jealousy is a human emotion. You get the point. Man seeks to dominate that which he cannot dominate by trying to lasso it with human metaphors. So in a way, a man is simply using his anthropocentric nature to attempt to dominate everything. And he actually believes his own bullshit. I mean, originally, man thought that the earth was the center of the universe. Now he begrudgingly acknowledges that it is not the center of the universe. But this is the first instinct man has, to see everything in human terms. Everything revolves around human beings. And most of human knowledge is based upon this premise that the unknowable can somehow be known. This is what philosophy is all about. Trying to know the unknowable, which cannot be known. Man refuses to accept this. In science, man tries to know the unknowable this way. Man says, well, we've thought about it, we've made our calculations, and we have discovered that the universe is 1 trillion light years, I'm giving you an example, is 1 trillion light years in size. That's what man says. Now, 1 trillion light years, from the point of view of human beings, is an incomprehensible concept. Pretty much just as incomprehensible as the concept of infinity is. We can't wrap our minds around it, we humans. So saying that the universe is 1 trillion light years in size is really saying the universe is unimaginably big. And then maybe a few years later, the scientists say, well, we've revised our calculations. The universe is not 1 trillion light years in size. It's 12 trillion light years in size. So once again, man is saying that the universe is unimaginably large. But these scientists won't acknowledge that. Because by quantifying, by giving a number like 1 trillion or 3 trillion or 5 trillion or 12 trillion, it gives man the illusion that he knows something, that he knows that which is unimaginable. And it seems to give man some kind of superficial comfort. Man has all sorts of clever human ways of dominating the indomitable. Another example, man will say from one side of his mouth, yes, yes, God is unknowable. God is omniscient, omnipresent. What's the other one? Omnipotent. These are concepts which we cannot know. But man can't leave it at that. No, man says, well, yeah, it's true. We can't know what God is, but God has spoken to one of us, mere mortals. We call this person that God has spoken to a prophet. And so even though we cannot know God, we have this prophet who can interpret for us. He's an interpreter. He's a go-between between us humans and God, the inhuman. We have the prophet. And the prophet will tell us. Or, if not a prophet, we clever human beings who seek to dominate everything will say, well, we can't know God. But you see, God gave us this book. And the book has instructions and descriptions. And it's through the book that we know God. There are many, many other clever ways that man seeks to dominate the indomitable. And man has been doing this for such a long, long time that he actually believes his own shenanigans and own clever rationalizations. And he actually does believe that he can know the infinite. Ain't that something? So that's just one of the things that I have observed being on this strange planet this psychotic planet, this savage planet, this planet which is kind of like an insane asylum, where each room of the insane asylum has another delusional character. It was hard for me to include this in my novel/report to Commander O'Brien. I did the best I could in leaving home, but there is so much more to talk about. Or is there?